The British Prime Minister Tony Blair in Parliament.
Some sectors like the airlines and insurance industry will be badly affected, but financial markets have quickly stabilised. The oil producers have helped keep the oil price steady, and businesses proceed as far as possible as normal. So there are three things which we must now take forward urgently. First, we must bring to justice those responsible. Rightly, President Bush and the United States government have proceeded with care. They did not lash out. They did not strike first and think afterwards. Their very deliberation is a measure of the seriousness of their intent. They, together with allies, will want to identify with care those responsible. This is a judgment that must and will be based on hard evidence. Once that judgment is made, the appropriate action can be taken. It will be determined, it will take time, it will continue over time, until this menace is properly dealt with and its machinery of terror destroyed. But one thing should be very clear. By their acts, these terrorists and those behind them have made themselves the enemies of the entire civilized world. Their objective, we know. Our objective will be to bring to account those who have organised, aided, abetted and incited this act of infamy. And those that harbour or help them have a choice, either to cease their protection of our enemies or be treated as an enemy themselves. Secondly, this is a moment when every difference between nations, every divergence of interest, every irritant in our relations should be put to one side in one common endeavour. The world should stand together against this outrage. NATO has already, for the first time since it was founded in 1949, invoked Article 5 and determined that this attack in America will be considered as an attack against the alliance as a whole. The UN Security Council on Wednesday passed a resolution which set out its readiness to take all necessary steps to combat terrorism. From Russia, China, the European Union, from Arab states, from Asia and the Americas, from every continent of the world has come united condemnation. This solidarity must be maintained and then translated into support for action. Mr. Speaker, we do not yet know the exact origin of this evil. But if, as appears likely, it is so-called Islamic fundamentalists, we know that they do not speak or act for the vast majority of decent, law-abiding Muslims throughout this world. I say to our Arab and Muslim friends, neither you nor Islam is responsible for this. On the contrary, we know you share our shock at this terrorism, and we ask you as friends to make common cause with us in defeating this barbarism that is totally foreign to the true spirit and teachings of Islam. And I would add that now more than ever, we have reason not to let the Middle East peace process slip still further, but if at all possible, to reinvigorate it and move it forward. Thirdly, whatever the nature of the immediate response to these terrible events in America, we need to rethink dramatically the scale and nature of the action the world takes to combat terrorism. We know a good deal about many of these terror groups, but as a world we have not been effective at dealing with them. And of course it is difficult. We are democratic, they are not. We have respect for human life, they do not. We hold essentially liberal values, they do not. As we look into these issues, it is important that we never lose sight of our basic values. But we have to understand the nature of this enemy and act accordingly. Civil liberties are a vital part of our country and of our democratic world. But the most basic liberty of all is the right of the ordinary citizen to go about their business free from fear or terror. That liberty has been denied in the cruelest way imaginable to the passengers aboard the hijacked planes, to those who perished in the trade towers and the Pentagon, to the hundreds of rescue workers killed as they tried to help. So we need to look once more, nationally and internationally, at extradition laws and the mechanisms for international justice, at how these terrorist groups are financed and their money laundered, and the links between terror and crime, and we need to frame a response that will work and will hold internationally. For this form of terror knows no mercy, no pity, and it knows no boundaries. And let us make this reflection too. A week ago, anyone suggesting that terrorists would kill thousands of innocent people in downtown New York would have been dismissed as alarmist. Yet it happened. We know that these groups are fanatics capable of killing without discrimination. The limits on the numbers that they kill and their methods of killing are not governed by any sense of morality. The limits are only practical and technical. We know that they would, if they could, go further and use chemical, biological, or even nuclear weapons of mass destruction. We know also that there are groups or people, occasionally states, who will trade the technology and capability of such weapons. It is time this trade was exposed, disrupted, and stamped out. We have been warned by the events of the 11th of September, and we should act on this warning. So there is a great deal to do, many details to be filled in, much careful work to be undertaken over the coming days and weeks and months. We need to mourn the dead and then act to protect the living. Terrorism has taken on a new and frightening aspect. The people perpetrating it wear the ultimate badge of the fanatic. They are prepared to commit suicide, to die in pursuit of their beliefs. Our beliefs are the very opposite of those of the fanatics. We believe in reason, democracy, and tolerance. And these beliefs are the foundation of our civilized world. They are enduring, they have served us well, and as history has shown, we have been prepared to fight when necessary to defend them. The fanatics should know that we hold our beliefs every bit as strongly as they hold theirs. And now is the time to show it.
Ian Duncan-Smith.
Mr. Speaker, may I start by thanking you for the opportunity to...
The British Prime Minister, Tony Blair, addressing a recall of Parliament, an indication of the seriousness of the event. It's only the 18th time that Parliament has been recalled since 1948. To assess what Mr. Blair said, I'm joined by CNN's European political editor. He's Robin Oakley. Robin, terrorists have made themselves the enemies of the civilized world.
Yes, we've had the theme already from Mr. Blair. This is an attack not just on the United States, but on democratic values worldwide. Key phrase, I think, when he said, "We stand by our friends." And quite clearly, whatever reservations there may be in any other quarters, in NATO or elsewhere, there will be full military support from Britain for United States action. Interesting that Mr. Blair commended the United States for not striking back immediately without thinking, and he talked about a long slog ahead, a period of care, finding out exactly who was responsible and exactly the right way of hitting back at them.
But hitting back at them...